name is Viktor Sarris, and actually, thank you so much for inviting me. I liked the talk, especially the first part. It has been Allen Parducci. Yes, and I'm talking not so much about frequency, but rather, as you see, the range principle in relational psychophysics. I called it in some way, ambitious as a voyage. So many years, as I want to show you during the next minutes to come. As a matter of fact, this title refers to relational psychophysics. Another word might be contextual psychophysics, which implies contextual effects as contrasted to the classical assumption of, as you know, absolute judgments. He was a promoter, very much so. Not the first, but one of the major ones of contextual psychophysics. By the way, in his programmatic chapter on mathematical psychology, proposals for the 21st century, published in the Journal of Mathematical Psychology, 2008, James Townsend points to Allen Parducci's work, and he asserts there that, quote, this Parducci or F model is an enduring challenge, which is the inclusion of context effects in psychophysical scaling, unquote. Indeed, I do agree. And here, during the next minutes, I first want to illustrate the ubiquitous range effects by using a simple example from my own rather early research as discussed with Allen Parducci some 40 years ago. And after that, a joint study, which was published in '78, the last century, Sarris and Parducci. So that is so much more data-oriented, as you can see in a moment. Yeah, and the main part, perhaps, of my talk will be Allen Parducci's article published in 1984, republished in this year, as you will see. And I want to very, very briefly comment on major statements of Allen Parducci's literary coding. Here we see three range effect trends, which do illustrate the example of relational psychophysics here. Note, please, the increasingly flattening stimulus-response lines. There I see the three red arrows, if you like. It is an inverse relationship between the steepness of the curve and the spread of the ranges used for the example of pitch judgments performed by many subjects indeed. And I do not want to deal with the experiment itself, but rather to show you this was one of the main examples which Allen and I had discussed over the year during the 70s. After all, already in the 60s, I, as a young postdoctoral then, had visited at UCLA with Allen, talking with him about my own experimental work then for my dissertation at Hamburg University. Oh wow, it's more than half a century ago. But that wasn't a lasting story. This Allen Parducci Viktor Sarris, as we shall see in a moment. Yes. You might like to then learn from this very simple figure. Pitch judgments are strongly dependent on the respective stimulus ranges provided by the physical inputs of the system, which means one and the same stimuli are just very different in the context of the three different ranges used. And here is the title of my joint publication in '78. Multiple anchoring, it says, not single, multiple versus single anchoring in category rating scales published in Perception and Psychophysics. The data which were collected together at Allen's place at UCLA Psychology Department. Maybe that you and I, Michael, had met already when I was again a guest student or postdoctoral in this case with Allen's. We will see. I don't remember everything, but I'm not trusting my own literal judgment. At any rate, these are the main results. I mean, the red anchor range emphasized traits. They do point to some kind of decreasing. I don't like this pointer. I mean, who is this young man who's responsible? I have to grab. You see the red arrows. Go left-hand side. Does a decreasing anchoring effect. Left-hand side, right-hand side of the two-fold figure. Decreasing anchor effectiveness. Counterintuitive anchoring effects, meaning that the most commonly used anchoring effects are upraising, not going down. That was interesting, a discussion with Allen, to let him try to rethink his own RF modeling. Now, in addition to anchoring effects in psychophysics. He never remodeled his theories, although he did use anchoring effects in his own work, before and after we had jointly published this work. And please remember, this kind of experiment, bring it to your attention, should illustrate the effects of single versus multiple anchoring, which was studied. Left-hand side single, the classical typical anchoring studies in psychophysics, versus the right-hand side presented multiple anchoring effects. The more sophisticated auditorium colleagues and friends here may note that the multiple anchoring effects do show a little less decreasing because it's multiple, not single anchoring. Go with your eyes to the left-hand sides of the red-marked arrows. I shall not deal with this any longer, but again, these are counterintuitively obtained anchoring results. By the way, my earlier research, published in '67, in the American Journal of Psychology, using only single anchoring paradigm studies. It was very much the same which we see at the left-hand side, however, leaving out the range spaced here twofold. Right. Allen thought requoting him, that in real life, a whole bunch of anchor stimuli, the multiple anchoring case. In an earlier work of his, a whole bunch of anchoring stimuli might meet a more everyday life situation. For example, quote unquote, when a salesman compares his own commissions with the commissions earned by his fellow salesmen, the multiple idea of contextual things, according to Allen's. As you see, at any rate from this figure, in this co-author study, both the single and the multiple anchoring led more or less to the same results as to the decreasing anchor effectiveness in psychophysics. Now, having emphasized the empirical side of Allen's and my exchanges beginning in the end 60s, being continued during the 70s and 80s, and even longer in the 90s, etc. We have also worked on other issues as one of our major accomplishments, which I'd like to show you here. It was the edition of a book. And this book, which came out as a co-editorial book in 1984, Allen has included one of his interesting articles on the contextual theory in psychophysics, according to his RF model. Now, this is so important for me. After all, this Sarris and Parducci book, the rate is, hey, young man, this is so faint. I'd like you, but not the sticker, you know. I mean, perhaps you are innocent. This got 3 issues in a revival series in London. The first edition was published in North America by Oberl Press, right, in '84. But this was reissued Routledge, London. At any rate, look at the following bunch of quotations, which I call in front of you the AP Allen Parducci quotations, which I'd like to present to you as a little collection of literary quotes. During these few minutes, I mean, Michael, I have to take care of your own contribution anyway. At any rate, this is the first one. Quote, strong tests of the model were possible because the context of the psychophysical stimuli affecting the judgment of any particular stimulus appears to be largely restricted to the set of stimuli presented in the given experimental situation. Parducci, unquote. Comment. Note that our joint introductory chapter 1 discusses the question to which extent the experimental, the strict experimental method is respectively maybe the via regular in psychology, the königliche Weg, that is international. The königliche Weg, the via regular. We had some doubts on this, and in modern thinking, don't forget, especially the younger ones, no, also the older ones, the crisis in experimental psychology, all right? We still have a crisis, all right? Yeah, but still, Okay, I have to stop here and to continue another quotation. Quote, future research on judgmental relativity as seen by Allen 1984. Because the relativism seems so basic to the judgment process in general, but also alien to the absolutist way people ordinarily think about the value experiences. I, Allen Parducci, I do hope that it will come to occupy a bigger place in the experimental psychology of the future. Everyone gives lip service to judgmental relativity, but no one does anything about it. Unquote. Additional comment unto the day. Parducci's RF model, as I think, has been supported and extended by means of much experimental research. In fact, Parducci's RF model is still a main theory in relational psychophysics. For example, as one of many. See James Thompson's 1908 article in the Journal of Mathematical Psychology, which I quoted during the first minute of this talk. Another quote is this little one. Quote, it seems useful to think of the anchors, now the anchor story, to think of the anchors as combining with the extreme values of the regular series to establish the endpoints of the subjective range. The same account may be applied to the decreased, emphasized here, to the decreased anchoring effects of whole sets of unjudged stimuli, when these are too distant from the given series at hand. Sarris and Parducci, 1978, unquote. I've shown you the data. Emphasis here. All right, we may skip it. I told you about this. This is counterintuitive. This has been much of my own work anyway. But this is on Allen Parducci, so go ahead. Another quote. Quote, my own interests have been increasingly devoted to translating range frequency principles into a theory of happiness. Certainly, it is quite a jump, second, from psychophysical experiments to speculations about the conditions for a positive balance of pleasure over pain, unquote. Now, I never did this in front of Allen. All right? And here, Allen and I departed. He worked so much on happiness, which made him, among other things, so much more famous in the world of cognitive psychology. I'm smiling. Here, my comment is, Parducci's happiness research has been summarized and discussed in length in his unique book on happiness, Parducci, 1995. It's almost now a quarter of a century ago, published in the States. It is almost, it is the last quotation of the bunch of possible others in the quotations. Third, philosophy, according to Allen, philosophy has two virtues that complement corresponding vices in psychology. First, attention to those psychological problems which have constrained thinking people since antiquity. And second, a realistic modesty about what can be accomplished in psychological reality. Unquote. Yes, this is an example of Parducci's long-standing, pervasive interest in the philosophy of psychology. And this is the last slide here. My concluding remarks referred to Professor Robert Björk, one of his colleagues, close colleagues at UCLA. In September last year, there has been a rather early obituary on Allen's. In memoriam, Allen Parducci, 97, the influential psychologist and an early pioneer of windsurfing. See there in this USA Life Science article, also the close of Echtebar Trafalgar, and Cynthia Parducci's daughter. So I do not like the literary code here due of time limitations. But I like to add here, yes, Allen was a very humorous and witty and so creatively working and discussing a person. I miss him too, very much. Allen Parducci, R.I.P. This is Viktor Sarris speaking, Frankfurt University.